الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وبعد. If you watch the news in America, for example, where I live, it's like on a daily basis, and they just chose a title for what they're talking about as if they all conspired to have the same title. The war against Israel. The war against Israel. They keep bringing about what Hamas did, Hamas didn't do, whatever. As if the conflict in Palestine started 3 weeks ago. Didn't start 105 years ago when the Brits gave Palestine that they don't own to the Jews to establish a homeland there. And since then, the Palestinians have been suffering greatly, Muslims and Christians, under the brutal occupation of the Jews, supported by the West in such a fanatical way to cause us to think about it. Why are they doing that? We'll talk about the Christian Holocaust against the Jews, but today we're talking about the Jewish Holocaust against the Palestinians. War against Israel? Really? Let's talk about Gaza. 5 miles by 25 miles, 2 million people living there. Can you imagine that? Under blockade by air, land, and sea, total blockade by the Jews since 2007. Supposedly they left Gaza, the Jews, 2005, but they're still there. They won't leave. They won't let people live and get enough medicine, water, food, and anything else. And this is before the war started, the war on Israel or against Israel. Then it intensified. There is no doubt about it. I mean, even Hamas does not deny that they started this latest conflict, but it is one among so many since 1917, when the British gave Palestine to the Jews that never had any ties to Palestine. They still don't, and inshallah, when the Muslims wake up, they will not have anymore. But what can we say? So the war against Israel, compare Hamas in Gaza. Hamas have thousands of fighters, okay? What kind of weapons do they have? Small arms, what they call them, these things that they use, gliders, like a couple of dozen. And yeah, of course, those Iranian missiles. You shoot them there, they go there. That's all what they have. The rest of the people in Gaza don't have weapons. They're not armed. They're civilians. They're human beings. They are sitting there being bombed indiscriminately by the Jews, using the very fanatical support that the West gives to the Jews, the weapons they give them. They bomb the people in Gaza and the West Bank. They're even using aircraft to bomb what they call mosques, which is not true. It's not a name for our places of worship. They're called masajid. In Gaza, 55 masjids were destroyed completely. In the West Bank, they attacked I think 2 or 3 masjids, destroyed them, let alone the people, the killing and destruction. So, is there a war against Israel? How can that be? Let's compare to what Hamas has and the Gaza people do not have, as compared to what the state of Israel has. And I'm just giving you here some of the latest numbers. Israel, 170,000 active personnel, 465,000 reservists, so close to 700 something thousand. Actually, I think it's more than 800,000 people in active and reserve positions in the army. 2,200 tanks, 530 big artillery pieces, 340 combat aircraft, including 200 F-16s. So 340 combat aircraft, including 200 F-16s, and they have many more aircraft that are used for support, for escort, whatever it is. So they have close to 1,000 aircraft. 145 helicopters, 50 patrol and coastal combatants, 5 submarines. And we are told, as confirmed by Carter, who was president for 4 years, did nothing for the Palestinians, but then when he left the office, he's acting like he really, feels about what happened to the Palestinians, the apartheid. Okay, what can we do? That's he didn't do anything for the Palestinians. He confirmed that the Jews have nuclear weapons. Compare that to the Gaza people. What, 20,000 Hamas has, and that Iranian supported group Jihad, 20,000, 25,000. How can these people actually be engaged in war against Israel? Call it an attack by groups of armed people, maybe. The war is from Israel against Gaza and the West Bank. And they did this since 1967. It's nothing new. Nothing new. The Palestinians, like myself, I was born into this conflict. We lived in Kuwait. We couldn't go and see Palestine, as we wanted, because the Jews won't let us in. And I remember I was 6 years old when the news came about the total defeat of Egypt, Syria, and Jordan in 1967, and about the sadness that brought to our family, my mother, and all the Palestinians in Kuwait, and the Kuwaiti people who still feel very strongly for the Palestinians. It started in 1967 against Gaza and the West Bank, but the West is acting like everybody was nice, everything was going great, and everybody was exchanging pizzas with each other and cakes and gifts. Then all of a sudden Hamas started a war against Israel, and no, we need to condemn what Hamas did. Well, Hamas is not denying they started the conflict that started 3 weeks ago, but they had not started the conflict that started 105 years ago. Before Hamas or any of its leaders were born, the conflict was there. It's really amazing. Before what happened in Gaza the last few weeks, from the beginning of the year, 250 Palestinians were shot dead in the West Bank. There was no Hamas. There is no Hamas in the West Bank. No Hamas. This is how the Jews pronounce it, Hamas. There is no Hamas in the West Bank. They killed still 250. Among them, a large number of my own town, or in my own town, which is Jenin in the West Bank. Some of them from Abualrub family. It's my family, Jalal Abualrub. Nobody said anything about it. It's like the regular schedule of killing Palestinians. Who cares? But no, or Hamas to start this latest conflict, they're acting like it's the first time that the Jews were the recipient of attacks and there was no conflict before. They can't think beyond 3 weeks. That's all. Since before the 3 weeks that the conflict, the latest one was started and is intensifying from the Israeli side, there was nothing. I mean, come on. The blockade against Gaza started 2007. How many years? Not how many weeks. How many years? 3 and 3, 16 years. 16 years. And these people are suffering. And the Jews supposedly left Gaza. Can you imagine what's happening to the West Bank and its people where the Jews did not leave? They're not planning on leaving anytime soon. They just want to cause so much death and destruction among the Palestinians so that they can send those gangs, literally, gangs, armed gangs of settlers with no human compassion, no mercy, to shoot those Palestinians who did not do them any wrong. None. But they are the killers. They are the ones who destroy. And I want to end with this. Knowing what the Jews are doing to the Palestinian Muslims and Christians, and they have been doing this, like I said, since the beginning of the conflict 106 years ago. I remember the name that the Christians really know about, I think. Just the name. They don't know much about him, really. Jesus. Isa. Jesus. Look at the brutality the Jews are directing at the Palestinians, and look at the brutality they faced Isa, Jesus, with. That's a patient man. That is a remarkably patient man. Can you imagine the kind of hostility he received from the Jews during his time, who tried to kill them, whom, out of his frustration with them, according to the New Testament, called them snakes and vipers, children of the devil. You seek to kill me, even though I'm just giving you my the words of my father, which is a name they used to call Allah with, Elohim, not God. Anyway, how remarkable is the patience of that man, and I can only imagine the kind of trouble, violence, brutality, hostility the Jews directed at Jesus. These are the same people that my people today are receiving so much death, destruction, and violence, brutality from. And the world has no say about what the Jews did. They just remember 3 weeks ago, Hamas did not go into Israel. That's Palestine, that's not Israel. It's called as such in the Old Testament. And even when that foreign minister of Britain, Balfour, gave a promise to establish a homeland for the Jews in Palestine, what did he call it? Palestine. Oh Allah, give us victory against those enemies of humanity and the enemies of Jesus. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to support and help our brothers and sisters in Palestine and all Muslim brothers and sisters who are suffering throughout the world. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.